Okay, we're ready.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, welcome everyone. We'll start tonight with
No, it's just blurry.
okay,
Um,
that's just how I look, I'm sorry. All right, thank you everyone for coming tonight. We'll begin with a confirmation of the agenda tonight. Has everyone had a look at the agenda? Are there any changes that would be requested? Otherwise, would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
No motion.
Thank you. Seconded. All in favor of the approval of tonight's agenda? Aye. Okay, all opposed? Very good. We also need to review and vote on the minutes of the previous two meetings that Patrick sent around earlier. Are there any questions on or revisions to those minutes from the previous two meetings? And hearing none, is there a motion to approve the previous two meeting minutes? So we can move on. Thank you. Second again, all in favor of approving the previous two meetings minutes? Aye. Any opposed? No, thank you very much. All right, so just to start this meeting like we often do, I want to begin by outlining for ourselves and for the public the purpose of our group, which is outlined in the procedures document, is to play a key role in supporting and collaborating and providing input and assistance in examining community challenges and opportunities related to land use, in preparation of goals and strategies to implement a regional vision, and in recommending changes in zoning. So these meetings are primarily for our use as a work session and not the primary mechanism for the public to provide feedback on the region plan. Public feedback can be provided at the county's region plan website and the community hub sites along with future public meetings. And the public should be aware that if they submit written comments, they will be distributed to the committee members for review. If there are members of the public who wish to speak here tonight, there will be a limited comment period at the end of the meeting. We move it to the end of the meeting again, or we're back?
No, it's at the beginning.
At the beginning, all right, we're back to the end, that's fine. So yes, if there are any members of the public that want to speak prior to the meeting, we'll happily entertain that. Is there any comments from the vice chair before we begin?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just a quick reminder from that we all here are committed to be respectful and have a productive dialogue. And so just a brief reminder that please allow everybody to speak. Let's try not to interrupt everybody. And also to be respectful and mindful of others' time, because at the end, every voice and opinion is very important, and best decisions come when we all have the opportunity to contribute. So just a quick reminder of being mindful of your own time when we are speaking. That's it.
Thank you, Beatrice. With that, are there any members of the public here tonight who would like to speak prior to getting the meeting started?
So, yes.
Sure, there'll be a 2-minute timer and I'll let the staff do the procedural bits, but just give us a minute, we'll let you
Sure.
get going. You ready? Okay, well, tell us your name and where you're from, and then we'll go
Sure.
ahead.
My name is Bridget Kennedy. I live on Bacon Ridge Road in Brownsville. Been there since 1989. And I have one of the applications for a zoning change that's you guys are reviewing on this committee. And I just showed up in case there was any questions beyond the character count for the application. As the just broad picture, we have 9 acres on Bacon Ridge Road, and it's right now subdivided into 2 lots of about 4.5 acres each. We would very much like to be able to put a second home on one of the undeveloped lot, so that my husband and I could stay there, age in place. We're both retired at this point, and my son and his family, which is his wife, and 1 and 1 on the way kids, to move into the bigger house that's more appropriate for a growing family. And right now, we can't do that with the current zoning, so that's it in a nutshell. We raised our kids in the big house, and we'd like to have them stay around. We're doing daycare for the little ones at this point, and that would make it pretty convenient for everyone. So anyway, if anyone has any questions, clarifications, comments? Okay.
It's.
Thank you, Bridget.
Yeah, and for the record, that is change number CZR6CRV0001.
Very much. Is there anyone else from the public who wanted to speak prior to the meeting tonight?
We do have 4 virtual attendees. I see one that raised her hand. Deborah Unitas, I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself and see if you can speak.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak. My name's Deborah Unitas. I'm on the board of directors of the Indian Landing Community Association in Millersville. And we, the residents of this area, are very concerned about the pace that the committee is moving forward with rezoning changes, yet no one is examining the quality of life and the quality of health in our community at this point. We see a request for zoning changes, but where specifically are the details? We hear the request for zoning, but no one has given us the privilege of having a detailed zoning request that is being prepared. We always find out after the fact. Since 1978, my husband and I built a home off of Indian Landing Road. Coming up Route 3 from Crofton, there was exactly 3 businesses: Midshore Seafood, Maryland Muffler, and a small repair shop on Route 3. Now, this is in 48 years. You've seen the massive uncontrolled growth in this area without any serious thought to leadership or rezoning for the residents. I noticed at the last meeting that there was a very short time spent on discussing the problems here in Millersville. It was approximately 5 minutes. Yet when I stayed for the rest of the meeting, there was at least 15 minutes, if not more, on a lot on River Road in the open space. I don't see the fairness in the approach that's being taken to our concerns that we are raising here in Maryland. And I've also submitted a letter to you that I hope you got today that talks about the groundwater problems in this area, the sewage problems in this area that are never fully addressed, the crisis with Jabez Branch Creek that is never fully corrected, and the horrible, horrible traffic and accidents on Route 3. As I said in my letter, just this past Thursday, I was on Millersville Road trying
Mrs.
to...
Unitas, we've reached 2 minutes with you,
Okay.
and we did get comments from you that have been shared with the SAC. If you have any other comments, please feel free to send them to the same email, and we'll make sure that they get distributed to the committee, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I cut you off.
Do we have any others in the virtual space that would like to speak during the public comment period? Okay, we have Lisa, if you can unmute yourself and give your full name and go ahead.
Hi, I have no idea if you can see me. Do you actually see me?
Can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right, because I couldn't see the last person. All right. I want to talk, if nobody else is about to talk, and say what Deborah Weller from the Old Millersville Neighborhood Association wanted to say, but she's out of town. Is there anybody else there who's talking on her behalf? Did anybody else raise their hands?
Not that we know of. So you have the floor. Please go ahead.
Okay, so let me try to all right, so she had a Word document which said, I will not repeat what I have written in previous emails, but want to address comments made that parcels 0356 and 0357 along the east side of Route 3 belong in Region 5. I strongly disagree with this suggestion and the idea that this intersection should be a commercial hub. It is true, if one looks west, one would see the developed areas of West County, a Wawa and a Royal Farm, all built at least 5 years ago, despite community objections or the unmanaged sprawl development adjacent to Route 3. There is a Maryland muffler business across the Millersville Road that's been there for 30 years. I think she sent this to you already, but the bottom line is, we completely concur with what Deborah, the other Deborah who just spoke, said, absolutely positively. Deborah Weller had sent some things to somebody named Jasmine, I believe. I'm sorry that I'm going so quickly. I just didn't know I was speaking tonight. And I sent a letter. Again, my name is Lisa Stedge. I sent a letter to you guys for the last meeting and included some ideas for ways that maybe we could keep that Maryland Route 3 and Millersville Road area from being a death trap down there. And to
We've reached the
Great.
2-minute mark.
Great,
and
sorry,
we
it
did
was
get
so
your-
crazy.
No,
Okay.
thank you very much. We did get your comments. They've been shared with the committee, and if you have any further comments, please send them into our email, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any others in the virtual space that would like to speak? If so, please raise your hand. And I don't see anybody raising their hands, so I think we are good.
Patrick, would you, for the purposes of the folks online and for the group, just briefly remind us of the phases of how the zoning changes work? So this is not necessarily the last step or even the intermediate step in the zoning changes, and how there will be future opportunities for public comment.
Yeah, thank you for that. So this is, as you all know, we've been marching through the region, starting on the east side. And tonight we're going to finish talking about the east side of the region. And then we're going to talk about the west side of the region, including the Millersville area. So we will get to that and get into an in-depth discussion on that area tonight. After we finish our work tonight, and I think we will finish getting through all of these potential zoning changes in this area, staff will put together a web app that contains recommended preliminary recommendations on zoning changes in the region. And that's going to go out for public review and comment in the June timeframe. And that will include all of the applications that the people had input for zoning change at that time. So that'll be publicly available at that point. The public will be able to comment. I think we're looking at a 3 or 4 week period for that. And then we will get back together in, I believe, August, and I don't know the date. We may not have set a date yet, where we will finalize with you all both the plan and the zoning recommendations before they go to the planning advisory board, where there will be public hearings during that process. That'll be in the fall, and then we anticipate in the winter of next year, so probably January, February, going to council, and there will be a public hearing process through that as well.
Thank you, Patrick. So as far as the question about the details of the zoning, that'll be made public during the June window that you mentioned. Staff recommendations, committee recommendations, and further details.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So with that, I guess we close the public comment session and continue with the zoning map review. This time I created, thanks to the suggestion from our vice chair, I wanted to give you all kind of a guide to help follow along. she had recommended that this might be kind of helpful to give to everybody. You'll have this, so this is kind of an abbreviated version. So these, the ones that have numbers on them, those are the applications that we received from folks. And the ones that are not numbers are ones that we want to talk to you all about as potential zoning or planned land use changes. So hopefully this makes sense and it'll help us kind of follow along as we move through these. So we ended at the last meeting, sort of in the southern part of the region on just off of Bestgate Road. And a couple of things that we did not talk about briefly were, I want to point out very quickly, if you'll zoom in on the Rolling Knolls Elementary School. That's a recommendation. It's currently split now between R1 and R2 zoning. We are making a staff recommendation to bring it all into the R1 zone. That's consistent with the surrounding. Do you mind turning on the adopted zoning as well so that that can be visible? The surrounding. Yeah, so you can see how it is split zone. This is primarily R1 currently, so we're recommending taking this R2 portion, which is the bright yellow, and moving it to R1 as well, so that the entire site is one consistent zone. And maybe before we take a vote on that one individually, let me kind of finish out this area a little bit. We have various properties to the east, and I need to get my cheat sheet so I can point to them. If you'll zoom out just a little bit, Maddie, and we can point to, there are a number of properties. Some of them are HOA properties. A lot of them are community properties like HOA properties. And some are owned by the Crownsville Conservancy that we want to recommend. They're currently split zoned between OS and R1 typically in this area. So all of this green area that you see here, we're recommending those areas be zoned fully open space zoning so that the full property will be open space and no longer split zone between OS and R1. And so that's, if I can just kind of blanket talk about those in one go. And then that'll finish us out in this portion of the region if you will have any questions on those. And if not, that sounds good, then maybe we could take a vote.
Is there anything that would impact the operation of the school? Probably not, but you're asking.
No, they're permitted in all those zones.
Last time I was here 2 weeks ago, the change to OS seemed fairly straightforward and non-controversial to this group. Is there anybody who has something different to point out with regard to the change to open space that we haven't discussed previously? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve the change to OS for all platted open space rec areas and for preserved conservation areas as proposed by staff.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving to the school specifically, are there any comments on the consistency change, making it R1 instead of the split zoning? If there are no comments, would there be a motion to approve the change to R1 as recommended by staff? I have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Change to R1 for Rolling Knolls Elementary. All opposed? Okay.
And one brief thing I'll point out in this area, if you'll pan over to Annapolis Ridge off of Housley Road. There, this neighborhood here, Annapolis Ridge, we're gonna recommend, currently that is in Region 6. The region boundary was drawn in this area along Housley Road. We would recommend that the region boundary be moved to put this neighborhood into Region 7, because that I think is the region that they're going to identify a little bit more with. That's their only entry point. That would take place in the next cycle of region plans. But that would be one boundary adjustment that we would recommend going forward. Don't necessarily need a vote on that. I just wanted to put that out there. If anybody has heartburn about that, I would entertain that, but
Are you gonna put the boundary maps recommendations on your public map or not?
not at this, it'll be in the plan itself. When the plan goes out after,
It's sort of hard to visualize what you're saying, but.
in this case, it's just this that square.
Oops.
Anyway, it was just that one neighborhood that was, recommended to move. Okay, yeah, this one is labeled Annapolis Ridge here, so to, Defense Highway and then.
But you had previously talked about other edits to the region boundary in that area, right? So.
Just the four that are subject of that, zoning change application.
I think the General's Highway group feels pretty strongly that Bestgate Road should be the boundary for Region 6. On this end and on the north end, it should stay as Veterans Highway, not shrink in its, yeah, landmass.
Well, Patrick, Melissa, go ahead, you go.
ahead.
Okay. What I think I hear you saying though is that right now the boundary goes down Bestgate Road, across, General's Highway, and then down Housley, or no, sorry, it includes those upper properties there, and then around, and the apartments, and then around Housley Road.
Yep.
All the way down to Defense Highway and then across,
Yeah,
and out to the waterworks.
that's correct, yeah, and so this is the boundary on Defense Highway here. And, and currently the boundary includes this residential neighborhood in Region 6. And I don't think that they would really identify themselves as within Crownsville.
I get the impression that, at least when we've been talking about Region 6 and it being very, very resident of rural as opposed to being more developed. Has anybody talked to that neighborhood and maybe asked them where they may see themselves or prefer to be more Region 6 rather than Region 5?
Not directly, only in the sense that they would have received letters at the start of this process, noting that the Region 6 process is happening, that it includes Crownsville, parts of Millersville. So in that sense, and there will be a handful of minor consistency changes. You probably can't see from there, but there are some slivers of zoning that will be resolved in consistency recommendations. And those property owners would get letters when that is recommended. So in that way, they would be advised.
I'm just thinking they're bordering on a lot of rural space.
True.
And if they're in Region 5 and Region 5 decides to start increasing,
They would be in Region 7.
excuse me, Region 7.
Yeah, with Annapolis.
And
Yeah.
I guess I'm just wondering, maybe they should at least be asked where they feel or is more amenable to what their neighborhood likes.
Patrick, is that land to the north and west owned by the city of Annapolis?
It is.
And is that likely to ever be developed?
I don't know.
So would it, to
Beyond
me,
what
it
we
seems
talked
like
about
any
last
development that would directly impact this neighborhood would take place to the east or to the south, which is Region 7.
Region 7,
So to my mind, it does make more sense that they.
Except for
are
the
included in Region
they'd
7.
have more voice. in
What
what's
region
going
is
on.
is across the fence, but between that and Route 50? Like there's that one sliver,
Where the mouse is right now.
like to the left of
That's all part of Region 7. That's the Pearl Town Center.
just that one sliver, even though it's on the other side of 50.
Zoom out of that.
You mean 450?
Yeah, okay, yeah. So all of this commercial and office stuff, yeah, that's all Region 7.
So basically, Joel, you've got a great point that they might, if anything's going to impact them, it's all gonna be decisions by Region 7, not Region 6. Okay, ignore my comment.
I appreciate the discussion. It's good. All right. So are we good on this area and should we move on to the northern part of the?
Well,
region?
yeah, I mean, when I'm gonna write a letter, but I mean, I'm against the town center in general, going up Bestgate, going up General's Highway, and would be definitely against that becoming part of Region 7.
That was from our last.
That's a
meeting,
buffer
I
of our
understand.
quality of life. So I just, yeah, I mean, I think the boundaries have been talked to a lot. I think it's so sensitive and I think it should be dealt with in a more, I don't know, straightforward way than just kind of hidden in a document plan somewhere to look at in 10 years and by then it might be too late for people to.
Presence in Region 6 or 7 wouldn't necessarily impact whether future zoning requests are approved or denied. Though this is just for who gets to comment primarily on what plan.
Not even that. I mean, anybody can comment on
Right.
any plan in the entire county, so.
So those dozen properties in this corner could apply to be members of this committee or Region 7 committee in 10 years' time, and that's the main difference for.
Well, primarily committee members do live within the region. But residents can comment on any region plan at all in the whole county.
Fair.
Patrick, remind me, so pretty much the boundary would just be consistent with the mission of that region, correct?
Mhm.
So in terms of like, if, for us, Region 6 is everything about keeping it rural, kind of low density, et cetera. And definitely, Region 7 has a different purpose, it's mostly commercial, kind of like higher density and so forth.
Yeah.
So, yes, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like an interesting, I see the point of like, they're already there and they're closer to more of the commercial spaces, makes sense, that it will be part of Region 7, but is that it would be interesting to think if the boundaries could be something that people could eventually comment on. I don't know,
Mhm.
that's just food for thought, not necessarily kind of, if they're in the plan, great, but if someone can even make a comment, or if that community wants to raise their hand and say like, hey, we agree, or we don't want to be part of that, that would be kind of interesting, just opening for the public to give an opportunity to discuss that,
Okay. Noted. Well,
just my 2 cents.
Sounds like you've heard some pros and some cons, and if you don't need a vote, I would say it's probably fine to move on to other matters. We'll vote if you want to vote, but if you don't need a vote.
we need to vote on the zoning pieces for sure, but we'll look into that. Thank you. So if we can move to the northern part of the county in Millersville Park, we'll start in that area. You all are familiar with where Millersville Park is. The current zoning there is, actually, what I wanted to do was I wanted to, again, put a lot of changes to OS zoning into kind of one bucket, and maybe we could present all of those at one time. If you need to discuss any in particular, we can pull those out. Otherwise, maybe you can call a vote on all of these at one time. So let me kind of go over these really quick. They're kind of all over the western side of the region. So the first one is Millersville Park. It is currently RLD. Because it's a county park, we're recommending that it go to open space zoning. Then if we can kind of zoom down to Tanager Forest, they have an HOA property that is currently zoned R2, which is consistent with the rest. So Tanager it's this neighborhood here, and so this green area here is currently zoned R2, like the rest of the neighborhood. We're recommending that it go to OS zoning. That's consistent with the planned land use that was adopted with the GDP. And it is a platted floodplain parcel. So it would add a layer of protection there. And then the Penderbrook neighborhood, they have a number of community open spaces. There are three in particular that are oh, I didn't do the math on this, 88 acres, 40 acres and 20 acres altogether. Owned by, they're all HOA properties, so a lot of, these that are, there are several, areas within here that are both Pender Brook and then also the Bacon Ridge, natural area. Bacon Ridge, there are a number of properties with Bacon Ridge that, are all recommended to go to OS. All of these, the Pender Brook and Bacon Ridge are sort of, split zoned between RA zoning and OS zoning, but we're recommending they be moved fully to OS zoning. And, do you have geocortex up and do you want to pull up the park layer to? So this, all this green area here is the county-owned Bacon Ridge area, and we thought it'd be easier to show you this than the other web app that we had, because that shows kind of the split zone currently. So anyway, all of that currently split zone between OS and RA zoning, and we're recommending that it all go to OS as a park. And then if we can move down to kind of the southern end of this part of the region. And we have two neighborhoods, the Ridges, which is just north of Route 50, and then North River Forest, which is, I think it's south of, yeah, it's these two areas here. So the Ridges on the north and the other one on the south, North River Forest on the south. The areas that are in green there, those are currently zoned, what are they? RA, they're split RA and OS zoning. These are all community spaces that are platted as open space and conservation property. So we're recommending all of those, the full property go to OS zoning. And that was, so I kind of thought I could point all of those out in one go. Are there any questions on any of those?
Now, they're all gonna get a letter the same way as the others.
The communities will, yeah.
Yeah, I think the Penderbrook one, they maybe talked about a pool at some point, but they couldn't do that with open space, correct? I mean,
No, we would need to talk to them about that and find out where and what their plans are. Any other comments, questions? Do we want to take a blanket vote on those then, and then move on into other items?
Sure. Does anyone have an issue doing a blanket vote? Because we can pull some out. I have a feeling there's no objection to voting for the county-owned properties to go to OS. Does anybody have heartburn about any of the subdivision or HOA-owned properties going to OS?
Who was the other neighborhood that we did this for? Was it Arden?
There were several.
yeah, we've got that.
And did we
We did.
decide to recommend it and just put the process in motion, right? We did, yeah.
We ultimately did, yeah.
Our neighborhood too, and I talked to them, and said, yeah, we talked about it, sent us the letter. Get this process going.
I'll motion that we vote on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like Patrick just talked about, as a group, yeah, 6. Labeled as various properties west of I-97 on our discussion guide.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to recommend a change to open space zoning on the properties west of 97, some of which are publicly owned, some of which are owned by subdivisions, but all the private ones are either platted as open space in a subdivision or platted as floodplain area in a subdivision. Do we have sorry, we do have a motion. Everybody in favor of that change? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the corner of Millersville Road and Route 3. This is the one, I would, suggest we could talk a lot about this. Let's take a look at the time and maybe see if we can sort of hold it to 15 minutes or so, but if we need to go over, that's fine too. There are two parcels here. It's, do you want to turn on the adopted zoning as it is? Might have to start it. Anyway, so there are two parcels. The larger one is, zoned C2 currently, and the smaller one is currently zoned RLD. They total about just under 8 acres, 7.75 acres. We got a request for C3 zoning that you all would have seen. That request noted that the site is underutilized and distressed. And the application said that the C3 zoning would promote opportunities for redevelopment, and it would be compatible with other development along the Route 3 corridor, and it takes advantage of the location of a signalized intersection. There is at least a drilling contractor that's currently on the property. Plan 2040 had placed the property in the critical corridor development policy area, consistent with some of the rest of the Route 3 corridor. That is not within the targeted growth area, though, just to be clear about that. Otherwise, the site right now, as you can see, it's a historic farmhouse with some outbuildings. The farmhouse is on the county's inventory of historic places, the historic inventory. And we've gotten several comments, and you all have seen them already about this site specifically, concerns for impact on the Jebez branch and traffic in the area and such.
Can you show the surrounding, like zoning, I know there's this critical corridor thing, but.
Yeah, so this is the only C2 zoning,
On that side.
yeah, so C4, within the median of Route 3 and then across Millersville Road is also C4. And then everything to the east and the south is RLD, and then some R1 to the northeast in Millersville.
I mean, a lot of your previous recommendations have said, recommend keeping RLD or, you know, whatever it is now, because that's what the surrounding properties are. And I think overwhelmingly, I mean, I haven't generated enough support against the town center in the north, but we've heard a lot of feedback about this as kind of a treasured area that people do not want to see this pervious viewscape disappear to be another conglomeration of what's creeping down Route 3.
And I think some of the comments that we've had before on other zoning areas is if we don't stop it at a particular point, that's kind of obvious as a corner. If you start doing that development change here, where does it stop? We've had a number of conversations about, well, yes, there's development across the street, but if we don't say no at this point, then it's going to continue down. So that's just been something we've talked about a lot before, and I'm just kind of wondering what more they would get if they switched from a C2 to a C3. And then I don't quite see the value.
Joan, do you want to talk briefly about the difference between C2 and C3 zoning? And you all have the laminated cheat sheet.
Yeah, C3 allows more uses. And it's gonna have, different requirements as far as the lot sizes, if they subdivide. Some of the setbacks are different.
And the C3 is more of your big box
Yes,
Retail.
yeah, you can put a Walmart on C3.
versus C2, which is more of office.
And there is
It's
no,
office, but it's local.
there's no public water or sewer here, right?
I don't believe there is.
Okay.
Excellent point.
We can look that up if you'll give me.
Was there a reason why the staff didn't make a recommendation on this one? Just as pending our discussion? Is
We
there-
wanted to hear Sure.
Anything?
Yeah, when did it move to C2? Did it all used to be RLD and then last zoning cycle it moved to C2, or has it been C2 for a long time?
It changed from RLD to C2 in the 2011 comp zoning cycle.
So it was, it says C2/RLD.
That's the little green.
Yeah,
The little
Next
green
to it.
one? Oh, okay, so we're saying they wanna take that whole piece, make it, okay.
So
secret.
they want that whole square C3.
Right,
Patrick, knowing that that was upzoned to C2 in 2011, can you read the blurb that you read about why it should be upzoned to C3, the justification comments that you read to open the when you
I
introduced the
just-
property?
Yeah.
These were my notes. I mean, you all saw the application itself, but the request in a nutshell just noted that the site was underutilized and distressed, and that C3 promotes opportunities for redevelopment, compatibility with other development along the corridor, and takes advantage of the location at the signalized intersection. That's me kind of paraphrasing
Sure.
from the application itself.
It's not,
it's been C2.
I bet when they applied for C2, they probably said that the site was underutilized and distressed. There's nothing preventing them from utilizing and undistressing it at a C2 level, correct?
And I would say from a slightly different angle, they upzoned it thinking, oh, if I upzone it, it'll develop as commercial, and it didn't, which
Right.
means maybe it should never have been
Never
upzoned
been.
because nobody wanted to develop it.
I mean, it's
And
been 14 years.
to kind of echo what I've said on other properties on corners like that, like, where's the entrance of the building, of the business gonna be? Is it gonna be off Route 3? So then you've got like 4 lanes on Route 3 and you're gonna come off the turn lane and turn into here, and then how do you get back out again? You're gonna turn left across Millersville like 100 feet from the intersection and hope you don't get smashed by somebody coming through the intersection? It just looks like the safety end of it is pretty significant, like adding more driveways there. You've already got the Wawa and the Royal Farms and all the other stuff there. And you're gonna add more driveways for more stuff. It just seems like,
It's also adjacent to the South Shore Trail, and we've
Yeah.
heard a lot of concerns about pedestrian safety crossing Route 3 and suggestions that the county actually buy this parcel and preserve it. So I don't know if there's any chance of that, but I mean, I would like it to all be RLD, but you know, I definitely don't support it.
Because I'm just struggling, they've had it at C2 for 14 years and haven't done anything with it. Even though there's been a lot of development all along there, I struggle to understand why a C, if we really want C3 to open it up to a Walmart as opposed to an office building. I mean, it just seems like it doesn't seem consistent with the rest of what is in Region 6 at that point. The other is Region 5. I keep thinking Region 5.
Yeah.
3 is Region 5.
Yes, right.
So this is kind of the last piece within Region 6.
Yeah, and that is another question is, the region line does run along, right along Route 3 here. Would we want to recommend moving the region line to incorporate these commercial zoning?
No.
That's your best guess.
Yeah, and we've heard, we got
I mean,
comments.
then you're
saying-
just shrinking us in and you're
Well, I'm
moving
just saying,
development in
I
and
guess all
just
I'm saying
renaming
is
it
if
something
they're
else.
in Region 6 and our mission or vision is to try and stay more rural,
Right.
then it would seem that that would be appropriate for her to stay at C2 instead of going up to C3.
And I would say echoing similar what the public comments have shared in terms of their concerns. Not necessarily is like being against development, but it's like about the fact that there is not a plan for development. It's just pretty much it just seems very opportunistic in terms of like just making a big buck out of like a property that initially was just for residential. And to me, that's kind of like worries me in general, because again, it's like, if I have a home next to a property like that, and then it's developed, I will sell that, and then that person, and it's like, it just starts kind of like the continued, development, but without a proper plan about traffic. And I see the point, I think there's like a little parking for the, trail across from that property,
Yeah.
right?
There
In
is.
in that little square, and I was like, it would be great if that property or that corner, yes, I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's great,
parking.
because if you take the trail, you can park there, you can go. And then I was like, if there's a big building or other, it's like, to your point about, traffic and unplanned development. And I think that is a concern that I have heard in comments, but it's like something that we all feel is like, if there was a strict plan about roads, traffic, pedestrian, bridges, whatever it is, will make sense, but right now it seems just very opportunistic from my perspective.
Because of the trail,
And
primarily,
Yeah.
or
No,
just.
the opportunistic in terms of like, it's like there's a
Route 30 in
property
general already.
already
And
developed.
you're driving
For the
down Millersville Road, you go past the elementary school, you go past all these houses. I still feel like I'm in my region until
You
I
have
get
Route 3.
through. And I like how it is now. I mean, I would motion to move it back to RLD because it hasn't. It's more fitting with the area to be RLD or to be a part, with the rest of the plan for this, I don't know, but.
I will say the school buses do go there, because there's a number of the Milledgeville Elementary kids on the other side of Route 3, and they do have to go through this crazy intersection every day, and anything you add to it can make that.
Well, you can
Or-
also, we've talked a lot about having smaller types of development that would help for the South Shore Trail. So,
The ice cream shop.
yeah, exactly. Small business, but
So-
C1. So C2 could
Yeah.
be, they could do
You could
that.
put a chicken restaurant there, right? You could, right? C2 is you could put.
Grocery store.
It's Walmart.
You could put a hotel or a motel on the site that's
Right.
currently zoned, and I think it's important just to know that the toothpaste is not going back in the tube, it's C2 now, it's gonna stay C2. It could be developed in line with county regulations with following all of SHA's guidelines for where they can and should put entrances off of Route 3 or not. So we're really talking about a change from C2 to C3,
And what
whether
that
we
entails.
would entertain that level of intensity of development, knowing full well that it can develop under C2 regulations at any time,
Right.
should they submit an application. So with that in mind, I understand, and to be devil's advocate, it is located on a major commercial thoroughfare. Development will happen at that intersection at some point, but should they go up in the ability of what they're allowed to do there? They're already allowed to do some commercial uses. I don't think it's realistic to say that nothing's ever gonna be developed there. But do they need to have an increase in what they're already allowed to do? I don't necessarily agree that they should.
But also
Can I-
just added,
Oh, go ahead. No, go.
it is a major intersection with major traffic issues,
Yeah,
accidents,
Lights.
probably one of the worst
it is.
in our area.
We've gotten the most
So,
The double
feedback,
light, the
most
double
public
light,
comments about.
that left turn.
so just echoing comments already what we've received. It's very hard to justify upzoning the parcels, I think just for that reason alone. And there's additional considerations we've already raised too, which.
I think Stacy wants to ask if it can be a gas station with C2.
Is the Wawa and the, what's the other one? Sorry.
Royal
Royal
Farms.
Farms. Are they zone, what zone is that? Or, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So
That's kind of like.
No.
the middle. So is one of your consistency changes, Patrick, gonna be to take away that RLD section because most of it is C2 or?
Or leave it as RLD.
They didn't make a recommendation. It's for us to figure out.
What I'm doing is I'm pulling up. So Plan 2040 was adopted with commercial planned land use on the large parcel and, rural
'cause they're
planned
different.
land use on the smaller one, so it would reflect that.
So can I make a motion to keep the smaller parcel RLD? Does anybody have an issue with that?
Yeah, you just make a motion.
Yeah.
Keep the current.
Yeah.
I'm gonna abstain from that one, but I'll vote for the RLD. I think the whole thing should be around.
How about a motion to retain the current zoning with no changes? Motion. I'll second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to retain the existing commercial zoning that they can develop should they want to, but no upzoning, no changes to the existing zoning
For either parcel.
for either parcel. All in favor of retaining the existing zoning with no changes? All opposed? Any abstentions? All
You
right.
need us to do that again, or you got it, Patrick?
No, I got it. I'd never counted who all was here tonight.
And again, that is, Patrick, remind us, that is not by any means the final decision, and there will be additional recommendations by the planning advisory board, and the county commissioners will ultimately make the decision.
Well, we'll get public comment
Sure.
in the June timeframe, and we may adjust then, but then yes, planning advisory board and council.
It would be nice if the meeting notes could reflect the public's requests that because of the sensitivity of the Jabez run and all that, the county could seriously look at purchasing that corner and yeah.
I
protecting
think
the
so when we write a justification, what we can
In the
do is
notes.
incorporate that, we can incorporate that into the SAC justification. I think I heard you all cite traffic issues, the Jabez, and just scale of development,
Safety.
you know, within the region. So I think if we craft a justification for the vote that you all just took that incorporates those ideas, I think that will do what you're talking about.
I think based on the history of zoning law, it would probably be more successful for the county to try to purchase that than to try to take away the zoning.
Yeah, that's, I mean, just
Yeah.
in our discussion notes, and because it was a public comment, like.
Yeah.
It could be a popular move for the county to purchase that and make it a park.
Given the trail too.
Given the
Given
trail
the
and
trail
there's
coming
not
through.
enough.
Yeah.
Park. And it's still rural, so it's not too late, you know, it's not developed yet.
What's next, Patrick?
Let's move on to NRV 21618, Norrisville Road. This one is beside that one beside the church, currently zoned RLD. There was a request for R1 to permit smaller lots to subdivide for sale and possible use by their adult children. Our initial recommendation has been to maintain the RLD zoning, because this lot and the surrounding RLD lots are about 5 acres each, and that's consistent with the existing zoning there. It's not R1 immediately around. There's
Mild side question, Patrick, but how aware are the people who have applied for some of these changes in order to facilitate uses for older children? How familiar are they with the county's accessory dwelling unit rules?
The newer ones, right?
a lot of times we respond
Okay.
with that comment as well, that they may be able to do what they want to do with that.
I motion to keep 1618 Millersville Road as RLD.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor of keeping 1618 Millersville Road, the existing zoning, no changes? All in favor? All opposed?
Okay.
We can do tiny houses now, right?
And just to remember, there doesn't have to be a majority in favor either way. It can just be a split consensus, and then the ultimate decision is made at a later date. So we're just providing input.
Yeah. Well, for there to be an SAC recommendation, 2/3 of you have to
Sure.
agree with one or the other. So let's move to 1119 Arundel Station Road. That's MRV 0001. That is this large parcel that she's pointing at there. So this one is currently zoned RLD. Kind of the same thing. They wanted to create 2 lots and be able to build 1 additional home. So we wanted to kind of toss it out and see what you would think about actually supporting upzoning this from RLD to R1 here. Part of the issue is, so this is just to the east of Millersville Elementary School.
Yeah.
Can you turn on the adopted zoning real quick? If it doesn't. And turn off the consistency. So you'll see currently that this area is RLD and there's a wild split going up these properties here. So we initially had talked about recommending rezoning these four, resolving the split to make all of these R1 as well. And if that is something that we recommend, then it is not a crazy thing for this to become R1 and rezoning all of, recommending a rezoning for all of these within this block to R1. It would provide potentially a modest increase in potential housing right along the South Shore Trail, right beside a school. If you can zoom out just a little bit. And it does kind of carry to the east that R1 zoning that exists to the west there. And then Millersville Park is immediately to the north, right there where she's holding. So I just kind of wanted to run that out and see how that landed with folks.
What's the zoning of that light green area? That's right to the east.
Yeah,
That's rural, right? All right, I mean, yeah,
You're gonna go from RA straight to R1.
No,
RLD in the middle, was what you're kind of.
no, this is RLD currently, so
But you're proposing changing it all to R1.
this was the applicant here. This area is currently split zoned R1, RLD. And so the question is, is that something that we should consider R1 within that block there because of the proximity to the park, to the school, to the South Shore Trail, and there's kind of amenities. It wouldn't gain a lot of new potential housing units, and only if any of those folks determined that they wanted to subdivide, and right now only the applicant has expressed any interest in doing that.
How many housing units have you added to the applicant's lots? That's a map for no.
Calculate,
Yeah, what's the acreage of or the square footage of the parcel?
the square footage of that one is that one's 5 acres.
Oh. Oh, they could get a number of houses. That's 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think that road isn't geared for more traffic. I mean, I would support the getting rid of the split zoning on those, but I wouldn't vote in favor of anything else of zoning, including the property in question.
I mean,
Including the applicant.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to what we talked about before, is we keep talking about breaking the split by upzoning stuff, and it just be further and further and further away. And I don't see any need to upzone it, like, I don't see it's a couple more houses, it doesn't really make a difference countywide if there are 2 or 3 more houses there, but locally, it's a nice area
This
with
is
not
also
many.
Java's run too, right? Is this part of it?
It might be, it's Severn River watershed.
The plat for this shows a conservation area that's 1.55 acres.
Oh, the forest conservation.
Yeah, forest conservation, so they can build on that, unless they change that.
Mhm. Which they,
All that would be required anyway. Right.
So it's a third of it can't build on, you're saying?
1.55 acres right now, they can't build.
Well, it's conservation, you said already?
Forest conservation.
Yeah, got it.
So think about your houses right next to a school. I don't know, I like the idea of people, young kids being able to live next to the school. Sounds nice in a park.
They're not right next, and there's no sidewalk between there, so there's no way the kids will be able to walk, just saying. And the bus won't pick them up, it's too school, so the parents will have to figure it out. It's never a good discussion.
That's good.
Patrick, from your perspective of the recommendation to upzone that area, why,
There's a lot of
just to
side-
keep it kind of consistent, or well, not consistent, but kind of just to eliminate that, because I see more value from my perspective, doing more like RLD versus R1, just because knowing that this is kind of like almost, it will be almost like a silo R1 amongst a lot of
It
RLD.
looks natural now how it is, cause it's RA, RLD, and then
To
R.
existing zoning again.
It's already kind of looks right.
Yeah, it's like you have RA and then all of that RLD, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if that little
Got the
sliver
school
next
on
to,
the-
it's also RLD, there will be kind of like an entire RLD.
And those RLDs look like they're more than half of the lot, so yeah, maybe for consistency, you can just make them all RLD, those split ones, I don't know.
And the R1 is the school mostly, and then the houses right next to the, like, adjacent to the.
So Patrick, can you, maybe some historical context that we're missing, but between the RA, the RLD and the R1, there are a wide variety of lot sizes. And it doesn't necessarily look like any of those three zoning districts has lots that are a unique size and consistent feature as it is. So again, devil's advocate, I don't know that it makes a tremendous bit of difference at all, even if we said all that's gonna be RA or all that's gonna be R1, they're still talking about a small change to the number of lots that are allowed, especially with constraints like forest conservation. So I personally don't wanna get into just because the colors on the map are colors on the map, that's what we should go with. But if there are other small lots in the area, and there are already smaller lots even in that neighborhood, I want to be consistent with how we recommend these things going forward. So I don't necessarily want to just say R1, go for it because everybody around you has it. But I also don't want to just say because there's a potential for change to consistency of the area that we should say absolutely no, because there are already a lot of smaller lots in that area.
Is this area on well and septic too? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the applicant?
Yeah. And it abuts the trail, basically.
And I think, for the quality of the trail, you don't really want a lot of houses staring at you while you're going down it. There's a nice wooded buffer there. The house doesn't see you, you don't see the house. And to pile another, 2 or 3 houses there, if they could do that.
Yeah, and
I guess I don't see a compelling reason to upzone it. I just don't.
yeah, in a nutshell, I could argue both sides, okay, so
Yeah.
we've got amenities immediately nearby, it would be it's nice to have more houses near amenities. The flip side, we talked about holding capacity at the start of this process. The Crownsville area is, under current zoning, can accommodate the 20-year projected increase in population.
I think we're at like a plus 200, right? We've got at least 200 more.
I don't remember what the top of my head. About right, yeah.
And I feel like this is internally inconsistent, so I recognize what I'm about to say. But if it was just the one property, I don't know that it would be a problem for me to change it. But if we're talking about all the properties to change to R1, then it starts to be a little suspect. But I don't want to base my decision on just, spot zoning one property because they want to increase them.
Then
Sure, yep.
I'll do it too.
So I do have an internal conflict and I can see it both ways.
Well, that was why we raised the question about, do we want to look more broadly at the whole area or not at all? So I think I'm hearing some,
Consensus.
maybe
I'm-
you all should make a motion.
Sure.
Motion to keep the current zoning.
Okay, there you go.
I'll second it. Yeah.
Motion and second to keep the current zoning, which is RLD. All in favor? Okay,
Can I clarify, are we talking just for what are we talking about? for
Just the current parcel, right? And then that's-
sorry.
Because To me,
Everything as it is in this.
there are three potential
Yeah,
things that
yeah,
I've thrown out.
split.
There's the applicant here who requested R1. There's resolving this split that could be resolved up to, Arundel Station Road, or rezoning all of this to R1 out to here. So kind of three.
Jasmine, do you wanna modify your motion?
I was motioning just to keep it all as it is now.
Maintaining the split zoning.
Would
Okay, I motion to keep the current zoning RLD and to include the split properties to make them completely RLD. That's my motion.
Okay.
They are currently half what?
Well, R1 and then half
So
R1.
R1
half
is the
RLD.
lighter color.
Wow.
So one is almost all R1, the top one, right? That guy?
Would you be willing to amend your motion to just focus on this one property?
Okay, just the one property, I'm motion to keep RLD, the applicant.
A second.
Okay, keeping the proposed property 1119 Arundel Station as RLD. Motion and seconded, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Good.
Now you can.
Did you want to make a motion?
Now,
after the
do the
split?
other parts, yeah.
Would
I
we-
mean, this is one of your would be a consistency thing for you, right?
How,
I mean,
how big are those?
You
The
can see
smaller
Yeah,
ones?
here, on the-
How many acres though? I mean, are they looking at?
There's not a lot built on them.
I mean, if you go with your percentage thing, it looks like the bottom two RLD would win and the top one R1 would win. So where the majority is RLD, let it be RLD, where the majority is R1, let it be R1.
We happen to have the addresses for those, Patrick, so we could make a motion of those.
The
Top
one
left
is-
would be R1, right?
And that's off Millersville Road, it
Yeah.
looks like.
That is on
Yeah,
Millersville.
If I can address, because Jasmine, you had asked about consistency. Plan 2040 was adopted with these as, all of these were adopted with rural planned land use, which would be consistent with RLD. So
Okay.
these would be staff recommended changes if we opted to upzone to R1 and then change the planned land use to low
So just
density
go back to
residential.
my, keep it all RLD.
So that keeps it consistent with the planned land use, right?
So they aren't split or they are split?
This is planned land use, this isn't zoning. Zoning.
Yeah.
They are
Goes
currently
split.
split?
In terms of zoning, correct, yes.
I do think we should fix the split, if that's what it's heard.
I think it should have lined up with the planned land use, but we should fix the zoning to match the planned land use.
So that's a recommendation for a consistency change to RLD for
Yeah.
all of those four adjacent to the school.
I second is that a
Yeah,
motion?
I'll move
I'll
to do
second
that.
it.
All right, so we have a motion to amend for consistency to RLD, the four properties west of Arundel Station Road, between Arundel Station and the school. We have a second, we have a question. Mhm.
Does that mean we are then down zoning those 1, 2, 3, 4 properties?
You're recommending parts of them.
Or, yeah, recommended down zone.
Sure.
And they're currently.
How does it work now? Say they came in for this process and they're split. How does that process work?
We
They-
would probably, OPZ, I think, would support R1 on probably the four that are adjacent to the school.
Okay,
So on the west of
Yeah.
Station Road.
yeah.
So they'll get a letter, right? And they can respond to the letter and say they want to be R1. No,
They would get a letter.
they would get a letter,
Uh,
yeah.
Either way, they would get a letter because they're split zones, so something's going to change one way or the other.
All right.
So we have a motion and a second to recommend that those be changed for consistency to RLD to match the planned land use. We have a vote in favor, who all in favor?
RLD.
RLD, yeah. I think I- All opposed? Okay.
So get worse. Yeah.
All right.
That's the genesis of this on the. Wow.
1504 Severn Chapel Road. I'm trying to remember which, is it that one? Okay. No, that's not it. But we're not, that's not one, that's going to Paris. Or is that RLD? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, that's right. I'm confused, guys. All right. This is a 2-acre lot. They're currently zoned RLD. Oh, maybe you have turnover adopted. So, they requested R1 to be able to build an additional home. And our recommendation is to maintain the RLD because there's no adjacent R1 properties, and this would be an isolated R1 spot zoning here. So this, yeah, no R1 or A, right? Correct. Okay.
Seems fairly straightforward. Any further discussion?
How many houses will fill a lot if it switches?
It's a 2-acre lot, so under R1 about one more, which is what they were
asked for.
Mhm.
They can have.
But there are accessory dwelling unit provisions already that they may be able to take advantage of.
Is that accessory dwelling unit based on square footage or what is?
There's a maximum of 800 square feet.
Yeah, it's tiny house.
It's not tiny.
No, I'm saying, but it's like,
It's a second 100 square feet. Yeah, the second floor less.
3 times bigger than the studio apartment in New York City I had.
So you need
Or definitely build a basement. And build it over garage, so it's 800 square feet plus the garage. Yeah, so that.
Yeah,
has to be pretty big.
Yeah, yeah.
So that means whenever people wanted to build an ADU for like family, like adult kids, that means they're actually pretty limited to a small family for their adult kids, like.
Yeah, it's
Or
not.
they would
gonna be
move
the
into
same
the
as
little
a-
house.
Yeah, the parents would have a little.
If it's attached to the house, it just needs to be smaller than the square footage of the dwelling.
You could attach onto the house and they're double the size of the.
They weren't there.
Yeah, additions are pretty loosely in regulation.
What was that about it, if it's attached?
If it's attached to the dwelling unit that's there, it just needs to be smaller than the dwelling unit.
Oh, wow.
If it's detached, it's limited to the 800 square feet or less.
So it's attached even by a.
Could you have a
long
breezeway?
hallway.
Yes.
Breezeway.
Really big. If you get, okay.
So for practical purposes, again, I see a lot of small lots in the area that aren't necessarily causing anybody heartburn at the minute. So if it was just a matter of should this lot be able to be subdivided, I don't know that I would have a serious heartburn, but if we're talking about rezoning and there's no similar zoning anywhere nearby, I would have a hard time supporting the rezoning.
And it's on a corner, and that corner is kind of awkward.
The turning,
The
which almost
turning,
blinds, like the
yeah.
people coming is kind of, yeah.
So, adding driveways there is just asking for trouble.
We have a motion.
Motion to keep the current zoning ROD.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to keep the existing zoning RLD. All in favor? All opposed? Okay.
All right. Now I want to move over to 775 Crane Highway. I want to talk about this one. This was not an application area. But they did submit an application during Plan 2040 for a planned land use change. So these properties are split between Region 5 and Region 6. So we've got, yeah, we've got a total look to the south. That's it. I was a little confused there. Okay, so we have Crane Highway running through here. These properties here are C4, and then we have RLD here. The property so it's one owner had applied for a planned land use change during Plan 2040. They requested mixed use planned land use. And we had recommended at that time retaining the commercial and rural planned land use, kind of as you see in the zoning there. There was an amendment at council that changed the planned land use for these to mixed use. So a strict consistency change would then bring these properties, these 4 here, and then this one into mixed use, one of the mixed use zoning categories. However, the site is currently the subject of a development proposal to build a couple of warehouses on this portion of the lot. So our recommendation is, and I want to stand corrected, this parcel here was not changed. The planned land use was not changed to mixed use on this one. So that remained rural planned land use. Because there is a development proposal that has come in and is under review currently for these, for a couple of warehouses, that's come in under the existing C4 zoning. Our recommendation is to maintain the current C4 zoning that would allow the development project to move forward, and since they're already in the pipeline. And we can also, doing that though, there is a mechanism to maintain the existing mixed use planned land use on those, so that if something happens, that development proposal ends up not going through, they would then have the ability for requesting a mixed use rezoning at some point in the future. This is something that we've done in different parts of the county, most notably Marley Station Mall has a similar situation where there's commercial zoning, but mixed use planned land use that is kind of a mechanism that would allow them to petition for mixed use spot rezoning at some point in the future if they choose to. So it'd be kind of the same thing in this area. So I just wanted to point that out here, that we're recommending, our recommendation is for no zoning change in this area and no planned land use change in this area. I just kind of wanted to talk through that with you. I think I would say we were looking at recommending moving the Region 6 boundary to put these regions, or put these properties into Region 5, all except for this rurally zoned one. So all of this commercial would go into Region 5, which would be consistent with the rest of the corridor. And I wanted to bring that up as well.
So none of the new mixed use and or existing C4 is currently like wooded. It's all like developed now, right? It's all cleared and.
So wait to see the satellite.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Zoom out a bit.
All those cars, yeah.
Yeah, it's all of this
And,
area.
Yes, I
area.
wouldn't feel like I'm losing some of Region 6 with that.
So at any rate, our recommendation is no change in this area. I don't know that this needs a vote necessarily. I just wanted to bring it up in case there was discussion to be had. Any comments?
And you said it's going to Region 5?
That would be our recommendation, is change the region plan boundary to bring all of this into Region 5.
So Region 5 boundary is right now, it's just Route 3, and you're gonna make it sort of this like weird snaking thing that has anything that's developed.
It would take in the commercial areas.
But doesn't that also kind of open up to next year, people wanting to take more of the rural areas into the region to make the line straight or something? I don't know, I'm just, like, are straight lines like more straightforward than?
I don't know.
I think all of your property lines make more sense.
Yeah. These are already commercial, so
Makes sense. to
it's not like
exclude the
they're
things-
taking bits that are current.
Yeah, I'm just
rural
worried of like the
and making
shape of
them,
what it
yeah.
could be, and it gets confusing enough with the different council districts for voting versus the region.
So the properties adjacent to that one along Route 3 are already, they're Region 6 now? Is that correct?
I'm pulling it up. The region boundary runs. We don't have the ability to change very easily. It's right here. Sorry. Those smaller parcels on the front, that's all Region 5.
Okay.
These are Region 6.
Oh, wow.
So I'm recommending put those in Region 5.
Oh.
Got it.
Partly because the same owner owns these and.
Yeah.
So it's already weirdly shaped.
Already
It
jammed.
is, yes. So
Already a mess. Okay.
That seems reasonable. Ah, there you go.
Okay.
all right, with that. Why don't we move to, 1216 Bacon Ridge Road. And
Ah,
we heard a bit about this one earlier. So as you heard, approximately 9 acres currently zoned RA zoning, and we'll get the adopted zoning on just a second. And as you heard, the applicant requests RLD in order to add an additional home to the property to allow aging in place. Our initial recommendation is retaining the RA because of, as you can see, all of the surrounding area is within the RA zoning. Can you zoom out just a
which
quick
one is there?
or two?
Yeah.
The one with the dot on it is, yeah.
Got it.
Pretty.
So, yeah, talking about the shapes of lots and everything, I mean, I guess this one's a little different in that it's 9 acres where some of the other ones were, you know, smaller. So if they couldn't subdivide this without a zoning change, correct? I mean,
One
we're
dwelling.
talking about the zoning versus the lot size and subdividing, but I think it's all one thing. Effectively, so because it almost looks like 2 lots. To me, it's a little different than some of the other ones that are on like a corner or are, but.
Can you zoom in a tiny bit? Sorry.
See.
Oh, I feel. Wasn't processed. So it's not only that arrow piece, it's the one across the street too.
Yes. Yeah, our property, that road that you see running back to the other lots,
Right.
that is on our property. It cuts our property, it's kind of, there's like a little triangle piece
Yeah,
below
down.
Wilderness Ridge Trail.
Yep.
And then there's houses at the end of the road that are 3.5, 3.5, and then 110, 112, leading up to our house. There's approximately 25 homes that are on 2 and 3 acre lots. And then we've got that sort of a weird little hammer shaped lot with the Wilderness Ridge Trail Road up to our property. Like the first half of it is up right away through our property. So, and the proposition would be, you know, our house is right on Bacon Ridge Road. To take that triangle piece in the back. We've already got road frontage on that right of way and put a age-in-place house for my senior citizen husband and myself. And my son and daughter-in-law, school teacher, retail, you know. I don't know, that's our dream. Like I said, and we are sensitive to the environmental concerns, our own house, we put in geothermal heating and solar panels and all that. We're not looking to tear it all up. is trying to provide first-time home buyer and senior citizen housing for a couple of families, a small thing, but that's the goal.
I think going along with everything else we've done is that I just don't see any way to change the zoning in the middle of an RA district. Everything around it is RA, and changing it to a high zone just doesn't match the neighborhood. Not consistent with what we've been doing everywhere else.
Right, yeah, I have the same.
You do have the ability to have an attached ADU of any, almost any size, and a detached ADU up to 800 square feet. So there's certainly options. And, you know, once you go carving out individual things for individual people, where the rules go.
So all
So
the
looking
other
at this,
houses that are right around them are one dwelling on 20 acres. Right. It doesn't
Now,
look like
they're
they.
2 and 3 acres all the way down the street, and across the street. There are some lots that are big, like 10, 12.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of cases, these lots were formed before zoning was applied, but the fact is, at this point, it's RA zoning all around.
But there
We're
are
just trying to keep it
a lot of
consistent.
houses that are
Mhm.
not abiding by or aren't.
That are smaller
That
than
are
what you might
smaller, where
expect.
you have houses on much smaller acreage.
But that's the case in a lot of Brownsville, like
The
throughout.
reality is the density, not necessarily the lot size.
Yeah.
The minimum lot size, or the minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet.
But I think the point that you're getting at is that if we were to just make this one small exception, it would not fundamentally change the nature of this neighborhood because there's already a bunch of
Right,
houses.
all of my neighbors
Yeah.
around.
But I think
Which is
2 to 5 acre lots.
they're saying though, the map shows the consistency of zoning all around them, and you have this one outlier, and then, right, the neighbor comes and I wanna
Right,
be the
the
outlier.
next time this process repeats, the neighbor's like, well, my neighbor got an exception.
Yeah.
Or my neighbor got a change.
It almost looks like 2 separate lots, but it's
I know,
not,
I
it's
wish you could
treated as
just like-
one lot.
Can they subdivide the lot and build a house on new lot?
If it's 9 acres now,
It's currently subdivided, actually, legally, when we bought the property, it's 2 lots, 2 different parcels. And they're each like 4.5 acres. But because of the RA zoning, it doesn't matter that it's 2 parcels of land that are recorded that way. You can't put a house on the other one.
Where's the line?
There's deed across the,
What?
you say common right of way, so it's one lot, so it's not 2 lots.
She's saying it's 2 lots.
It's one lot on the site,
Oh,
on the plat.
interesting.
And it has a Z that connects the 2 of them, so it's one lot.
Oh, so does that change things then, if it's one lot? Not 2?
Sharon, who owns the right of way? We do.
I don't know, it just says use in common.
And the Wilderness Ridge Trail up to the corner of our property line is a right of way across our van.
Maybe Albert J. Poliansky.
I know, I see there's like a business there, right? Albert Jackson Inc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Albert Jackson is our immediate neighbor. They
Got
have,
it.
in fact, they have 2 homes on their property too, by the way.
Very
But-
much cool too.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. But the right of way is through our property.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole road there that you got your pointer on.
Mm-hmm.
That's our, up to like the corner where everything comes together, then it's down the street, there's 4 more homes.
I'm just looking at the satellite map of that whole area, and there are a lot of homes on a lot of smaller lots.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm struggling that because these other people happen to build before the zoning came in, that they get to do it and have another unit on their acreage, but someone else can't.
But where does it stop? Because you could say that of anywhere in the county.
That
You
was
didn't
true
just
by
got zoning,
Arundel, too.
right? And you could, by that reasoning, if it were before zoning, I could put 5 houses on my lot. Because it's before, why can't we be before zoning now because they got away with it and I can't? It's, you can't go by what was the law 100 years ago.
I understand. I guess I'm just thinking though, that if you want to be consistent, you could make all of these that are right around there RLD rather than RA. So you could be consistent. You could just actually make it all right there, RLD rather than RA.
I wanna say that, like, I understand the idea that we wanna be consistent and where does it end, but the point of this committee is where it ends, right? In the future, if somebody tries to do this again, then there's gonna be another committee like us, and they're gonna sit down, they're gonna individually assess, do we think this is a good idea or not? It's not like they're just gonna rubber stamp everything in the future if we give this one place, RLD instead of RA, so that one house.
Since we have the experts here, like, is there any way they could, I heard it's one parcel, it's 2 parcels.
Right.
If it were 2 parcels, they could build another house, but because it's 1 parcel, they can't.
They had 2 separate lots, they could put a house on each lot.
It was a legal law.
No.
Legal lot.
You're
But-
saying it's one?
We've looked into it and we were told no, we were told that.
It's because it's what you pulled up, Jen.
Yeah,
It's
there's a
the-
plat right here that has 1 lot.
It's
In fact, it's not
recognized.
drawn right on there. The Albert Jackson property is kind of surrounded by your lot.
Right, yeah.
Just passed legislation that allows development on substandard lots.
So in the interest of time, would anyone entertain a motion to change the zoning as proposed by the applicant, and then we can vote whether we think it should, whether we think it shouldn't?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to change the zoning to RLD, which is, against the staff recommendation, would allow a second home. So the motion is to change the zoning to RLD. All in favor of the change to RLD? Okay, all opposed?
I didn't get all those.
I don't think that'll allow the second home though. Well, the density is 1.5 acres for RLD. It's a 9-acre parcel.
Yeah, it needs one more. You need an R1 zone, right? Right?
Yeah.
Because it's a 9 acre, so RLD is not helping them.
So if they divided their
slide.
acreage, could they
I know.
build
What
on a
if one
4
lot
acre
was
lot?
4 acres? And already had a house.
Well, so I think her question was, could you make it 2 separate?
Yes, could they build on
Can
it?
can she
I've got 2 numbers
petition
here.
to?
Parcel IDs.
If you have 2 legal.
I don't know what your parcel IDs are for. What?
I got,
You could apply for variance for the size, yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
I got 2 parcel IDs. For the 2 pieces of land.
So do we need to vote again just to make sure we have that on the
Yeah,
record?
I think so.
Okay, we have,
I don't know.
I'm suggesting that they
It might
might
be-
build an insurance off Bacon Ridge, a variable in this decision too.
I don't know what the other tax ID is for. Maybe it's for piece of the property. I don't know.
motion was to accept the recommendation or the applicant's choice to rezone to RLD.
Before we go, can we just make clear that at RLD, they still can't
Yeah,
subdivide the
right.
property? It's
So
only
I don't
9
know that
acres.
that's it's clear to us, nor does it matter, because that's what they applied for. I mean, that can be worked out.
It seems like we already voted and we were kind of split, so I don't, I think
yeah,
we're
it
gonna
doesn't-
be no,
yeah.
like, so.
I don't think there's gonna be, anyway, for the purposes of record keeping by staff, but all in
Yeah.
favor of changing to RLD, please raise your hand. Okay, all in favor of retaining the existing zoning or not changing to RLD? Okay. Don't have a consensus.
So what's the result there, Patrick or Desiree?
No consensus,
It's
6 and 5,
Okay.
6 in favor of retaining consistently.
you all wanna,
That'll just go to the council, right? And they'll just.
We may all just go to the council anyway, right?
Yeah.
No, I know, but I mean.
Council does whatever.
I've got consensus, you know, to that,
Yep.
it's like, okay, we can
It's
just.
just like any other circumstance that has been having in this case, is like, there is a record that
Yep.
we didn't agree.
Yep.
And that goes to council for them to consider, as well as there was different
Whether we
opinions.
agreed or not.
Exactly,
Thank-
as well as public comment, that again, there's public comment, after this.
Subdivide on 5 acres. build.
It's a little bit after 7 o'clock. Do you all want to take a five?
Just like that,
minute
yes.
break,
That would be great.
use the restroom, get this pizza, eat pizza?
Yeah.
And, we're waiting to. Okay, we're broadcasting now. Okay. All right, we're back. So let's move over to Johns Hopkins Road and talk about this one. This was an application that you all would have looked at. Interestingly, so the region boundary is actually, it follows this BG&E right of way that you see here. And this is also a property that is split by that right of way, just like the last one we talked about. So the property is actually this and this lot here. But if you look in the application, they included a graphic that really applied only to the Region 6 portion here, and they wanted to request, what did they request? R1, thank you. Current zoning's RA, they requested R1 in order to build a little single-family residential subdivision. Our recommendation was, again, to retain the RA zoning that is consistent with that surrounding area within Region 6.
Where on Johnson?
Can you zoom out a couple?
Right at the top of it.
Yeah, but.
Did they request this of Region 5 too?
It came in, I can't remember, but we pulled it into Region 6 because they had not proposed a change on the Region 5 portion.
Oh, they
So,
didn't.
no, it was all, the change was for the Region 6 portion, so we absorbed it.
How come that other rural part isn't in Region 6? Like, it's adjacent to
The
it.
power line and stuff are.
Well, just why is
The
it
other side.
split into two regions?
You mean, why is the border there?
Yeah.
The line is drawn along the.
This is-
So in this
Yeah.
case, it's a straight line, not a
Why wouldn't we?
use line.
We followed a right of way that
Yeah. the
divides
BG&E.
parcels or all its property lines.
Well, I mean, when it's Route 3, we're like doing this, but here we're following a straight line, just.
Route 3 is a public corridor that people drive up and down, thousands of people every day. And typically, I think good planning involves corridor planning that would, look at both sides of the road. That's a right of way. That's not a transportation corridor. It's kind of a different
In
scenario.
a rural area, you've got to pick somewhere to draw the line. I mean, it's very rural on all sides of that line. So you got to
So
pick
it's the
somewhere.
same owner on both sides, you said?
Yeah.
They own the whole, okay. But they're only proposing, did they do
The change-
anything in Region 5? I think-
No, they
They
didn't
didn't
propose a
propose
change on
anything. Okay.
this
Okay,
portion.
got
It
it.
was only on the Region
This
6
is
side.
really develop this is the flatter space to be able to develop, right?
I don't know that it's that flat.
What's the,
We drove by there, gosh, I don't remember, actually. It's undeveloped at this stage.
What's
but-
easier than theirs?
what's the zoning and the subdivision to the north of it?
R1, yeah. So it would be consistent with that. But it would, I mean, you all saw the
Different
graphic, there was
side
a
of the
long
road.
SAC with some single family lots.
Yeah.
And that was the proposal on where she has the. cursor there.
So
Like
if
the-
we
the road
agreed to
kinda
change
comes-
it to R1, would that automatically change the other half to R1 too?
Wouldn't
Region
have
5
to,
have?
So right now it's considered one lot,
Yes,
pieces?
yeah, correct.
so this would be one where if we agree
We
to
split
it,
it.
it'll be splitting the zoning
We
on
would,
a lot.
mhm.
Which we don't generally like to do, right?
We keep trying to not do that, right?
Generally, but there are times when it makes sense, and this would be one where if there were a need to split zone, that would make sense, because there's the BG&E right of way. Good questions.
It does look different, I'll say, like this side of the road versus this side, like just visually, from the satellite, there's really that character. It's because the zoning change, it looks like it, shit.
It's in amongst the more rural zoning. So. And
The lots to the north, where do they, what road do they? That goes to that.
What road is that, right? Yeah, that's church. Oh.
This is that,
This
this is
is
that
the-
T intersection where you come to the top and you
that
very
hill is
intersection.
turn.
It's a hill, yeah, it's an uphill.
I do it every
turn, it's the
day.
intersection.
A nightmare.
And there's a
And it
traffic.
backs up, like, literally all the way down to the bottom, like, all the way to.
I think we see where we're going on.
You can't see. You can't see, if you're at that T, if you're at that T intersection from the, coming from the southwest, you can't see the traffic.
You pull way forward and then you're like, I'm in the middle of the lane.
About once a month, you'll see the stops, one of the stop signs from that intersection has been great.
Yeah.
It's across the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, devil's advocate, what if this were rezoned and then subdivided and that graphic that you all saw came to be, there could be a request to donate a piece of that corner there and resolve that intersection a little bit. So it could be an opportunity to
That'd be great.
resolve that, but
We can't control that,
No.
though.
Well, the public works and
Once
the
it goes to.
development
subdivision.
regulations can control how they develop it.
Is it scenic historic road? Scenic historic road?
Is it? There's some historic, that
I
old
think-
church is
I think
on,
you're right.
on it.
I think it is.
That church is very old.
Yes, second, I can pull that up.
And it's very rural, like, once you pass this intersection,
Oh,
it's
there's
super rural.
farms, the farmers
yeah.
market, it's like right
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm, just down from it, yeah.
Yeah. Hi,
It is, both of those roads are scenic and historic.
Yeah.
Designated.
so they're not gonna,
Yeah, you're
they're
right.
not gonna change.
You're right.
Yeah, no, I don't see compelling reasons up on it. All right, keep the,
Are you motioning?
yeah, I'll motion to retain existing zone.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to retain the, wait for it, RA existing zoning. All in favor of retaining the existing zoning? All opposed? Alright. I have more. Right.
All right, next one, 2100 Edwin Lane. This one was about 4.5 acres. It is currently zoned RA. This one requested a change from RA to R5 in order to subdivide and pass on portions of the property to more than one family member and potentially build tiny homes.
Yeah, 5
Um,
acres, well, 4.5 acres. That's it.
And then they
R
can build
five is 5
dwellings per acre.
right?
Patrick, that's 5 dwellings per acre?
approximately.
Which was probably 20.
Yeah, 20.
Stream at the back of the property, I think. There's no public water and sewer.
Yeah, our recommendation was to retain the RA.
Yeah.
It's a nice little lane, has anybody driven down it? It is, it's a nice little.
Just zoom out a couple of places. There's no R5 or anything other than
No,
RA.
it is, they're separated and they got a lot of forest, so.
Why, I can't remember, why did they ask to go all the way up to R5?
I think they wanted to be able to subdivide and have more than.
Yeah.
More than 2 lots in order to pass on to family members and such.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20.
Any further discussion or do anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to retain existing zoning.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to retain the existing RA zoning and not to change it to R5. All in favor? All opposed?
No, you got me on that one. I swear.
What's dark areas in your map?
That's OS zoning as it.
Oh, that's
As it is
OS.
currently, yeah. I wanted to point out a planned land use change. If we can look at the Cross Point neighborhood, these are kind of, I think they're just to the east of, yeah, there we go. These are, the current planned land use is rural, but the current zoning is already R1 zoning, which is appropriate and consistent with the built condition of these neighborhoods. So our recommendation then is to change the planned land use to low density residential from rural, and that brings that planned land use into consistency with the existing zoning. And we would also recommend a change to the policy area. To neighborhood preservation, which would be consistent with a lot of the rest of the southern portion of the region as well.
That would not necessarily increase any development because those lots are already developed.
Already developed at R1 density, yeah. So this is kind of right sizing the planned land use.
Zoning stays the same.
Yep.
We voted on it? This is vote on
We need to vote on it.
Yes.
Yeah, I motion to maintain to change the planned land use to low density residential. Or crop land, right, that's what we're talking about.
In Bramley Lane, I think.
And oh, sorry, that's a parentheses, just gonna be.
Yeah. I think it's.
Those two areas.
And the development policy area as well to neighborhood preservation.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't write that down, sorry.
Very good.
I just read whatever's on the piece of paper.
Just tell me what to say.
second, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion in favor, changing the planned land use to low density residential and changing the development policy area to neighborhood preservation, retaining the R1 zoning, no changes there. All in favor? All opposed?
And
Yeah.
Okay.
finally, 1861 Crownsville Road, oh, that's one.
Yeah.
So this is just over 7 acres. It's currently zoned W2 and the property owner has requested W3, so heavy industrial zoning. They have a non-conforming use for concrete and stone processing, so that's what's going on there.
Oh, in the back, yeah.
It's been in place for 50 years
Yeah.
as a business. Well, enough of what's in the application. And they have a non-conforming use that allows them to operate in the W2, but they would like the W3 in order to not be non-conforming any further.
The same reasoning as, same arguments that we had before, for.
Let's make this easy. I move with the change at W2.
Yeah, second.
I want to say something about it. I drive past here quite often. And on mornings when it's a bit foggy, I mean, I'm not saying they're bad neighbors, I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, but on mornings when there's not much wind or it's a bit foggy, it reeks of industrial pollution, like burnt oil smell, machining stuff. It can't be nice for the neighbors who live around there because just driving through it, you get a car full of smog just from that one business. And like, I wouldn't want to make that permanent. When that business goes away, I hope it just goes away and becomes something else.
Well, they wanna,
Stays at W2.
they're already light industrial, they wanna go to heavy.
Yeah.
industrial.
So, yeah, I think
Essentially
it
expanding, right, with their,
retain the existing
Or
zone.
perfecting what is already going on there.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Those houses
If they-
are
if they
right
were to
up on it.
sell it
Yeah,
and
and
they're
they-
non-conforming, would the new owners have to conform?
If they keep the same location, the same business, they would stay conforming, otherwise that would be W2, right?
Yeah, I was gonna, Joe, respond.
No, he's right. They could sell it to somebody and that person could continue it, the same business, as long as they don't stop the use for 12 months or more.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they then would have to conform.
And then abandoned it.
But they can't expand.
They can expand.
They can't
You
change
can
it
expand a
to.
non-conforming use if you go through the special exception process,
To some degree,
to
right?
some degree.
Well, they could do that,
Public
right?
hearing
Without-
process, Public hearing, right.
They could do that instead of us doing
Yeah.
this change. Theoretically.
But if you up it to W3, you allow everything that's allowed in W3 and not just this business.
Yep. Yep.
Guys, I'm not gonna vote that we go for W3. I agree, industrial and residential,
Yeah.
that.
And he's got to defend, he's like, yeah.
I'm gonna build a house guy, but, I'm not the industrial. I'm just saying, you don't have to convince me.
All the houses around the sides there.
Yeah.
And they're right, that residential development.
Yes, oh, that's good.
I second, we had a motion, that you wish to get, Melissa?
I just moved that we keep it at W2.
I think somebody over here seconded. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to retain the W2 zoning and a second. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Okay.
Good, so those are all of the changes that I wanted to kind of point out to you all. That was all of the applications that we got, all of the major staff recommended changes that we know of at this point. And I didn't, of course, I didn't go over all of the consistency changes. I went over the big ones and just kind of wanted to give you all a sense of what those are about. So what I would like now is a final vote to move the draft zoning as we discussed it. If I could get 2 votes, one on all of the, kind of general consistency changes, except where we discussed and where you all may have disagreed. And I know there was at least one where you disagreed with our recommendation, but otherwise, if you all are in favor of advancing the map to public, for public comment, the preliminary map, with the general consistency changes as Desiree discussed in the first initial presentation. And then a second vote on advancing the rest of the map with all the changes that we did discuss and the alignments of zoning with property lines and all of those things. So if I could kind of get 2 votes on moving the map to the preliminary draft stage and public review.
I'll motion that the consistency changes move to the public review map, then.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the general consistency changes and to make that public. Yeah, do we need to ask more questions? Because you can't. Okay, all in favor? Okay, all opposed? Okay, very much. I want to take a stab at the second request.
Go for it, Jasmine, you got this.
And then they're gonna be on the same map, right?
Yeah, it's all the
Okay,
same.
okay, and so
What-
these are the applications.
Yeah, let me explain. The map, there will be a hopefully less glitchy web app than what we've been using. Our GIS team is still diligently working to pull it together. There will be a layer with the applications, and you'll be able to click on those and pull up the application and see what was requested and the reasoning and all that. There will be a layer with staff recommended changes, and those are some of the ones that we talked about that are outside of that we're recommending a change. And then there will be a layer with all of those consistency changes that are alignment with the property line, the refining the OS zone, the consistency with the adopted plan land use, all of those kind of changes are all happening. There's a third layer that you can click on and off and see all of that. So that's what that would look like, and that's what you're voting to move forward for public review.
So there's no layer about what we decided, or is that your?
It's gonna be built into, into these layers. We've taken your vote and it's gonna be recorded within there.
Okay.
That you all either concurred with us or you didn't come to a consensus on your one.
So, motion to make the rest of the zoning change applications public on the forward facing GIS map. Or, I don't know what.
Yeah, but putting the draft preliminary zoning recommendations forward for public
Yeah.
review.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Any opposed? Very much.
That was it, guys. Finished.
Comments on the survey, we get those too?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to bring up a couple of things before we totally wrap, and that was one of them. So we had given you all a copy of the economic strategies and had some other ones on there as well. I think I indicated in the email, if I could get your comments by Friday, if we could possibly get those by Thursday, that would help us. We would actually like to put them out to the public on Friday. So if we could get your comments by end of day Thursday, then we can incorporate anything that we need to change and put that out to the public on Friday and have a time frame for the public before we meet again.
Are you talking about that, like?
I think you already did it.
Okay,
Yeah, I
okay, is
saw
there a new draft, like, to comment on, or,
No, no.
okay,
No, not
but
yet.
you're not, but, okay, but is there gonna be a new draft before you put it out to the public?
No, we wanted to give a week to you all to take a look and make comments and kind of be our guinea pigs and see what,
But you will be making some changes before it goes.
we're gonna be, looking at what you,
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me was saying essential services, you know, that wording, and that might be in our vision statement too, but I think we're more supporting the small businesses than we're expecting every essential service to be in our region for us, so that was my only, that someone would latch on to that as like a reason for development. but-
My biggest problem was that we talked about small commercial areas, then we talked about small business nodes, then we talked about community hubs. And I was kind of like, well, okay, in the first three questions, we have three different terms, and at least maybe I was looking at it in bad link or something, but the first question is about small commercial areas, the second, number 3, number 4 is supporting community hubs. And a second. Yes, it's 3 mentions small commercial areas and small business nodes, and question 4 is community hubs. It's kind of like we're using 3 different terms, what I thought.
So this is a survey. I thought it was like a document. There's like a document you wrote.
these are draft strategies that would go out to the public for review, but I think what I hear you saying is you would feel more comfortable with what community hubs and using us.
Yeah, I love that. I like the community hubs. That was what I thought we had all talked about before, was trying to use the term.
Yeah, I've also heard small business and
The small business nodes, yeah, we said,
Yeah.
I guess
Need to
it,
vote on
I guess
it.
it matters on what we mean.
Revitalize.
What do we actually mean? Like, what do we
And
after?
whatever we want to use, I just was thinking that it'd be helpful to be a little more consistent, so that we're using the term.
I don't think it mentions small business or pedestrian anywhere, if I'm thinking of the same document.
So I'm looking at this land use development, existing local small business nodes.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't, if we got rid of the term nodes, maybe that would work, where it's just existing local small business in the region to serve surrounding neighborhoods, but if, I don't know, I'll talk about it.
Yeah, so the survey was for the strategies, not what we reviewed before was the actual part that would go in the plan, like the actual.
Yeah, I don't know if I
document.
reviewed what she's talking.
So yeah, that's the actual strategies.
Okay.
so in one of my
And it's
last
healthy
emails to you
economy,
all, there was a draft survey that what for strategies that I want to put out to the public on Friday, so
Yeah.
maybe take a look at
That's the
that.
healthy economy.
It's very short.
Yes,
Healthy
May
economy.
Pick up May 9th.
Yeah.
yeah, it won't take a long time, but I appreciate the comments, Melissa.
No, oh, that might help too. Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's-
Hey, Patrick. I may have missed this before. Was there an application for the old post office on Cecil Avenue? Did we ever discuss that? There was comments on it,
Yeah, there's a comment. Yeah, we
but there
do.
was no, okay. I was gonna say, 'cause I haven't seen it come through. Okay.
There were comments.
Historic Millersville. It's a small.
I think that, I think there were
Oh, I know what you're
some
talking
preemptive
about. Yes, yeah.
comments.
Got it, okay.
Which is fair.
That's helpful.
Yep, yeah.
The only other thing I wanna bring up is that we did have one SAC member who resigned, and so we are a group of 14 at this point. So I just wanted to put that on the record as well.
No, is there like a minimum or no? Not that I think any other.
We're not close to minimum, so we're doing good.
Okay.
That's all that I have. Any other announcements, questions?
Would you remind us again of the remaining meetings and the topics that are
I don't
coming?
have that date on me.
That's
Our next meeting is in June.
fine, I don't need.
Our intent is to have a draft of the plan pulled together for you all to review a couple of weeks before that meeting,
Yeah,
and then we
take
can
time.
talk about it, then.
The last week of school.
And then, and
And that's the only one scheduled. Not only one on the calendar.
Correct.
I think we had an August meeting, but no dates. set
Yeah,
yet
there's
for
nothing on the
August.
The
Yeah,
concept of an August meeting.
Yeah, and the intent then would be to go over any of the comments that we get on the preliminary draft zoning map. And, and
Are you thinking early August?
probably need to send out a Google poll and
Okay.
figure that out, because this is high vacation time.
Yeah.
June 10th, thank you, is the next meeting. So, we'll go ahead and send out that doodle poll for August and start to get that on people's calendars. We don't have one in July. I'm not worried about that either. Okay. Thank you.
I agree on the survey thing, I'm not quite sure. Yeah. Small businesses and then community hub, I'm not exactly sure, I mean, maybe there needs to be like a definition.
Kristen made a
Community
great,
hub.
great suggestion, maybe have a link to the definition and
Yeah.
also a link that shows where.
Like
Yeah.
supporting community hubs, which consist of
Hubs.
revitalized existing small business.
Yeah, because otherwise I would be like, I don't know what that means even.
Exactly, so. I'll come.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other matters? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved and second, all in favor of adjournment? Aye. See you next time.